We've shown how Totem can remember information about you and about the world, but it does more than just regurgitate facts. It actually tries to make sense of the concepts involved in your statements and to connect them semantically in a graph-like structure that's able to understand more than just the mere facts, but able to extrapolate connections between them. So the first thing I'll do is I'll show that when you teach it something, it actually understands the meaning of the sentence and can extract just the relevant information to answer your question. Remember that my favorite color is blue.
Got it.
What is my favorite color?
Blue.
So it gave me just the piece of information that answered my question. It knew that that was the fact or the concept in this case that was relevant based on the way I was asking the question. I can also ask it direct confirmation type questions. So yes or no sort of things. Is my favorite color blue?
Your favorite color is blue.
Is my favorite color blue?
Yes.
Great. So it's able to know that that's both the case and that that's the way it should answer based on the way I was asking the question. But just to show this isn't a toy example.
I don't have an answer for that.
Well, that's good.
I don't remember.
Just to show this isn't a toy example, let's teach it something else that it doesn't know, and let's ask it to extract a different kind of information. When does the train get here?
No idea.
So let's tell it. Remember that the train arrives at 4:30.
Okay, I'll remember that.
When does the train get here?
4:30.
So it understood that I was asking for a time, and it was able to pull out that information from the sentence. But Totem can do more than that. Totem can also do a form of semantic inference, where if it knows something about one's concept, it will try to extrapolate that knowledge to other similar concepts. Remember that fruit is sweet.
Okay, I'll remember that.
So let's ask it something that is related to sweetness, but not directly what we taught it.
I'm not sure.
Does fruit contain sugar?
I think so,
How did you know that?
because you told me that fruit is sweet.
Right, so it made a connection between sweetness and sugar, and it was able to think that that might be true. So it made a hypothesis about the world, and interestingly, it's able to explain to us why it thought something. And it does that by, when it makes a decision, it sort of explains to itself why it did it, and we're able to ask about that later. But it can do more still. So it can do something like transitivity, where if you know that A is true, and B is true, and that if B is true, C is true, and you know that A is true, you can know that C is true. So we can demonstrate that behavior with Totem. Remember that apples are fruit.
Okay, I'll remember that.
Okay, so earlier we taught it that fruit was sweet, and now we're telling it that apples are a kind of fruit. And now we're going to ask it something that it asks it to put those two pieces of information together. Are apples sweet?
I think so,
What made you say that?
because apples are fruit.
Right, so it was able to put that together. Is fruit sweet? Is fruit sweet?
Yes.
Right. So lastly, we can do something that is very difficult for question answering systems normally to do, and that's to understand when something is not true, or negation.
I'm not sure.
Well, you'll see. So we're going to teach it something that is not the case, and when we ask it whether it is the case, a lot of systems will say, yeah, it is, they'll just regurgitate it. Ours is able to understand that, that this involves a negation and that, that the fact is actually false. Remember that my keys are not on the table.
Okay,
Where are my keys?
not sure, but I do know that your keys are not on the table.
Okay, so it knew that it did not know the answer, but it knew that it knew a negative fact about the answer, and so it returned that. Are my keys on the table?
No.
So it was able to reason that it knew that they were not there, and therefore the answer to the question was no. Let's ask it something related semantically and have it do both inference and negation at the same time. Are my keys on the counter?
I don't think so.
Why did you say that?
Because you told me that your keys are not on the table.
Okay, so it put together the fact that it knew the keys were not on the table, that counters are similar to tables, and therefore it made a hypothesis that the keys were not there either. Now, it might be wrong about this, and just as in earlier videos, we can explain to Totem the right answer, but it still is able to make a guess about how the world is based on how we've told it the world is already. And that's a pretty powerful ability.